So we are going to start the fun part of this tutorial, which is recording these two instruments by bowing them with a pretty crappy violin bow to give that nice gritty scraping kind of sound. And we're going to record this raw first, and we'll expand on this session as we go along. Okay, so looking at the Pro Tools session here, I have two auxes set up to take the digital input for the guitar and the bass, and I have them sending down to two recording tracks. I had to do it this way just to avoid having a feedback loop, because I was noticing that if I had these set as the inputs and I tried to input monitor them at the same time, it created a feedback loop. So this was the workaround for that. And it's just a general good practice anyways. So now I gotta go over and turn my phone camera on for this part. So that is the source material that we are going to be using for continuing the process. Before we move forward, there's one thing that we have to do, and that is switch up our playback device. Because now that I'm not doing a live recording and I'm starting to edit, I'm going to switch it over to the Voicemeeter aux virtual ASIO. And it's going to save the session. Give it a second. Hit OK. Session will reload. Bada bing, bada boom. So now, on my interface, I'm going to kill the two instrument tracks, and we're going to hop over to this side and just completely eliminate this from our signal flow because we do not need it anymore. We're still going to have this guy set up so that you can hear me over here while I'm still playing with this. And as you can see, the audio input capture is still picking up Pro Tools, because of the way we have our signal flow set up now. So now the regular output, this is actually going to our physical output, and it's still going to the digital virtual as well, which is how it's making its way to OBS. So, what we're going to do, we have our raw files now. We're going to open up the next part of the process. So here we have two different effects racks and a print track. So we're going to set up some plugins on each of these, and we're going to record these tracks, send them to both of these, and then we can have a good balance of dry and processed that we can play around with. I have a control surface, little fader port 8 in the studio, so I can dynamically mix between the dry and affected sounds, which I'll do once we get these guys set up here. And for the sake of the last time's recording, I had these tracks routed to the output so I could still hear them through my headphones, what I was doing. But now we're going to change these. I have this track's input set as a bus to the SFX chain, and this one as well. So we're just going to send these guys. You can shift and select both of them, and then I'm on Windows, so Shift Alt, or I believe Shift Option, correct me if I'm wrong, busing this to the SFX chain. And now we have a control over here for how much is going to the other track, which I'll set at about 15 to start for both. And I'm going to change this one to one of my other buses that I have, stereo Verb. And I'm going to send each of these to that as well, just to keep them separated so I have more control. S Verb, boom. And again, I'm going to bring each of these, I'm going to leave these ones down for now, just so I can play with the first effects first. So let's dive on in. Set my playhead, and one that I'd like to start off with for just general messing with the sounds, it's in harmonics, it's distortion, and it's decapitator. Anyone that knows about sound toys knows about this guy. The way I have my signal flow set up here is I have my raw audio, and that is sending down to this print track through a bus, which I have called Sound Effects Master, as a stereo track, and I have them both pan center. I also have each of these two sending down to the effects racks, and then these send to the same Sound Effects Master, which will end up coming to this print, all summing up here at the print track. So when I play, depending on how much send I give this thing, is how much distortion each of these tracks are going to receive. So if I bump this up, and I bump this guy up, you'll be hearing more of the distorted signal. Now what I'm going to do real quickly is I'm going to put each of these in playlist mode, and I'm going to copy them down holding Control and Alt, both of them selected. I'm going to select them each again. This way I don't, even though I'm doing destructive audio suite stuff, I still have my original raw audio file. So I'm going to normalize these guys. Use peak and go about -1.5. Let these render. And then copy these guys down. And just to make sure that nothing is clipping, we're going to limit this as well. I like L1 limiter, makes things nice and simple. And we're off to the races here. So this signal, we can get rid of the playlist view now that we've done some quick little processing. Changed my mind. So, back at it. Now that we've got this guy processed a little bit, normalized, we're going to try one of my favorite sound design plugins, which is the Melda Productions MComb plugin. And it has some very crazy capabilities, as I'm about to show you. We'll just skip to one of these. Silica Tarot, this is a pretty decent one, and I'll go to a meatier part of this. Alright, this is interesting. So we're going to stick with this guy. And what to put on here next? We'll go with Sound Toys Effect Track. And I'm just going to jump right into the sound design side and work my way backwards. I'm going to kill the wet a little bit. Yeah, I'm liking this. That signal's still trying to go. Alright, so those are just two little effects there. You can go as deep as you want to go. The possibilities are endless. Just for kicks and giggles, we'll throw on a reverb. I really like Reverb stereo. I know there's better ones, but as anyone that does sound design knows, these things are expensive. So we'll go in and go load, and let's just go ambience to start and see what we got. So that's pretty cool. This is clipping probably a lot right now, but what we'll do is we're gonna just take this guy, we're gonna turn down the dry signal, say about there. Hey, clicking there. And turn this guy down a little as well. And while we're at it, might as well even turn this guy down. So this way when we kick these back on, now we're not clipping nearly as hard. So, we have this effect rack set up, and if we wanted to, mute it for now, and we'll see what we can whip up with on this other side. Now, I've got another one that I really like to play with that's a pay what you want plugin called Dumpster Fire, and it is a treat of a plugin, let me tell you what. As you can tell, there's no labels on the dials. I've kind of figured out a little bit of what each one does. I'm pretty sure this is a pitch wheel, but it just really mangles the sounds that you're playing with. So now I'm gonna play with the sends to these and put them at about 10, say -10, just to start. And you'll kind of get an idea pretty quick of why I like this plugin. This one's a lot of best part is all of this is feeding ultimately into the print stem, so at each one of these tracks we have a level of control over the volume, and the more we go, the more I'm gonna kill the dry. I'm pretty happy with this for now because we're gonna do a little bit more playing. But this is a nice section to loop, and we'll jump in. If you guys have any plugins that you see in this list of mine that you really are curious about, if I don't cover it in this video, chances are I'll get around to it eventually. But if there's something in particular that you see while watching this, and you're like, hey, I want to see how that works in action, like Crystallizer. I'm doing Crystallizer in this one, but if there's another Sound Toys plugin from the Sound Toys bundle that I don't cover in this one and you want to see it, let me know in the comments below, and I'll try to cover it in another sound design video. For now, we'll move forward with this design process. And this one's a lot of fun. There's a ton of different presets. I'm going to go to Affected, just because I usually gravitate towards this section of plugins. There's some goofy ones when you're doing drone stuff. find a fun preset that you tweak a little bit and you end up happy with. I always like to turn something all the way down to see what it does and turn it all the way back up. Just in case. Roboto 734. After the studio. The crystal side of things can get crazy. Go down to wet pad and see what this gets me. Okay, so I like this. Now I want to kind of make this even a little more crunchier. Go in with some dynamics. Now this one, Izotope Trash, is kind of hit or miss. And I'm just going to warn you now, if you do decide to use Izotope Trash, just watch your headphone levels and make sure that you at least turn the wet down and start playing with the wet from a very dry side of things, as I'll show you. You can get some pretty interesting results. We'll go on the experimental side of things first, and before we audition anything, I'm going to make sure that I turn this down. We'll go with Beautiful Disaster, turn the wet down almost to dry. Yeah, you can see that it gets real ugly real quick, but sometimes that's a good thing. Now I know deep wet delay is not too bad. Interesting one. I'm curious about Doom Underwater, but don't want to destroy my ears. Yeah, that gets spicy in a hurry. But I like it when it's just barely on. So now, let's unmute this guy. And hit it from the start. And this is where we can start playing with the levels. Animation. we'll just go latch for this. Because like I said, I'm in preview mode and I'm going to play around a little bit with what goes to what. Adjustments. I'm trying to send it less of the dry signal and more of the affected signal. And it's yielding a pretty interesting result. And the beautiful thing with having dual effects racks is you can mix and match plugins and get all kinds of different tones and stuff. And you can, as I'm going to show you here now, you can select your track and leave a little extra room for the Reverb to kind of tail off on its own, because I've got a pretty heavy reverb set. And you can just keep this selection or move it down, whichever you prefer, and then just let it run. Alright, so that's the basics for making effects racks and recording your dry signal, feeding it through these guys, sending it down to a print track, controlling your levels from all the different stages to create a kind of pre-mixed, printed, cool little drone sound. And that's the basics.